I never thought I'd feel like this.
For this specific type of research, we selected sports and the systematic racism as a massive part of America's culture and image. Throughout our country's history, we have seen systematic racism in sports be a massive part of our society. When these two factors collide, we see professional athletes and other things who are in the sports industry take the role of athletic activism to help our country end systematic racism. When these acts of athletic activism are committed, we see how the American people perceive and process these acts differently. The divide will determine how these athletes and their brands associated with them will either be positively or negatively affected by their acts of athletic activism, depending who views it. Therefore, it is imperative that we research how these topics of sports and systematic racism relate to the college students of both Black and white races. Therefore, it is imperative that we research how these topics of sports and systematic racism relate to the college students of both Black and white races who like sports, so we can educate them on what ways these two factors affect our country.
The target audience of this research is college students who are either Black or white and are sports fans. This was chosen to be our target audience because it is shown that these people are the most invested in both sports and social justice activism, and because there is a high population of both Black and white races in universities across the United States. In a recent study, it is discovered that 37% of Black people aged 18 to 24 are currently enrolled in the college in the US, and 42% of white people aged 18 to 24 are currently enrolled in college as well. The closeness and percentages make it easier to compare and contrast between the two groups, since neither of them are in a large minority. Therefore, since both sides of the audience are well educated and have different perceptions at the topic of hand, it will be an area where lots of research can be conducted to see the true meanings of this topic. Black and white college students who are sports fans will be interested in this topic of research because it will show them how the topics they take pride in can be used to further educate them on these topics. Approximately 52.9% of college students are visual learners, so we chose to use a video as the form of media to further inform them on this topic. This audience would access the video as a form of media because it will display multiple facts and important details about the perceptions of this audience about sports and social justice activism. The visual format of this video will also make the information of the research easier to understand and comprehend, which will improve their knowledge by simply viewing the video.
In the first article, Do Fans Care About the Activist Athlete? A closer look at athlete activism effect on brand image. The article in this study focuses on the effects of athletic activism on an athlete's brand image. In this study, two types of activism were noted, as safe activism and risky activism. The research was done on branded endorsements because it is very profitable for brands and athletes. In the study, a focus group was used to categorize both activism efforts and activism type, safe versus risky. The main audience in this study would be college sports fans. The hypothesis one in this study, consumers' attitudes toward athletic activism will significantly influence their perception of the activist athlete's brand image. The importance of establishing an athlete to a brand can be measured by the factors that were stated above. The study concluded that a majority of the type of activism would not negatively impact an athlete's brand image, especially for athletes who fans highly identify with.
In our second source, Avoiding the Issue, University Students' Responses to NFL Players' National Anthem Protests, we see what American college students think about NFL players protesting a national anthem. In this study, we see the perceptions of 32 mostly white college students in the United States and if they think positively or negatively of these protests. The main question asked was what causes these college students to have different ideologies depending on the perceptions they have on national anthem protests. By conducting interviews to see how these different ideologies and beliefs were utilized by the students to give different answers and to see the different meanings behind what they said, it was shown that the results did not all of these students opposed the NFL protests, but still a majority still did the NFL still opposed the protest by these black NFL players. More importantly, this also revealed a connection between the people who opposed the protest and white supremacy, while the ones who did not oppose the protest had an affiliation with liberalism.
The third article, separating perceptions of Kaepernick from perceptions of his protests, and analysis of athlete activism, endorsed brand, and media effects. Our final source of research shows us how the American people differently perceive Colin Kaepernick, who first participated in the kneeling protests, by news media framing, examining attitudes towards Nike, which recently featured Kaepernick in the advertising campaign in 2018. In this study, we see perceptions of 200 people who think differently of Kaepernick and his endorsement deal with Nike, depending on what news media outlet they saw framing him. The participants were randomly assigned to a negatively framed news report condition in Fox News and positively framed news report condition in CNN about Kaepernick and his endorsement deal with Nike.
The participants were then asked questions about the thing they just viewed, and a manipulation check was implemented to ensure that both the positive and negative news reports worked as intended. The results of the study show that there are no drastic difference of attitudes toward Kaepernick and his Nike brand endorsement while comparing the results of the negatively and positively framed news reports. However, political affiliation showed a difference of perception in the two news reports, but nothing drastic enough to determine the results. Overall, from the studies and research we have seen, we can determine that the perceptions of college students towards sports and systemic racism are big parts of our culture that cause people to perceive different topics in different ways. Although athletic activism has been around the past, strong traction happened only recently in 2020 due to the Black Lives Matter protests. From political affiliation to framing by news media outlets and to fans' engagement of athletic activism and the athlete's brand show that these college students are influenced by many different factors that make them perceive their country, sports, and athletic activism differently than other people and fellow college students.
Colin Kaepernick sitting through the national anthem marked an important event as it sparked conversations about athletic activism protests displayed in the media and how it spawned different perceptions about both sports and systemic racism in our country. We would like to thank you for watching our video. All of the links are in the description if you want to check out our sources.